A farmer's surveillance camera captured a particularly intriguing scene. Late at night, a wild horse quietly approached a cow's pen. What was remarkable was that the horse didn't come to cause trouble or search for food. It seemed to be seeking comfort or companionship. This image stirred curiosity and a sense of wonder among those who heard about it. However, something even more shocking happened later. When the cow tragically died in an unexpected accident, the horse's subsequent actions left the entire village astounded, an outcome no one could have foreseen. The village of Silverpine, where Noah Neeson lived, was a place where time seemed to stand still. Mornings began with birds singing in the forest, the gentle murmur of a stream flowing over weathered rocks, and the sweet scent of wildflowers carried by the cool breeze. Each small house in the village had its own garden, bursting with colorful flowers and lush green vegetable patches. The villagers lived harmoniously, often helping one another and spending afternoons sharing stories under the shade of the ancient tree in the village square. Noah Neeson, a middle-aged man with a sturdy build and calloused hands, was an integral part of this community. Despite living alone, Noah never felt lonely. He often chatted with his friendly neighbors and tended to his small farm with exceptional care. Daisy, a cow Noah had recently purchased, quickly became the heart of his farm. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight illuminated the fields, Noah would bring hay to the pen and murmur softly to Daisy, as if speaking to an old friend. Not long after, Daisy gave birth to a calf, bringing even more joy to their lives. Life with Daisy passed peacefully until one fateful night, when an unusual barking broke the silence of Silverpine. Noah, who was not easily woken, sat up abruptly at the sound. Standing by the window, he looked out toward the fields bathed in pale moonlight. "It's probably just a fox," he reassured himself, though a lingering unease remained. In the days that followed, the barking persisted, prompting Noah to take action. Carefully, he installed a surveillance camera near the cow's pen, hoping to uncover the source of the disturbance. The next morning, Noah eagerly reviewed the footage from the previous night. What he saw left him astonished. A wild horse, strong yet weary-looking, slowly approached Daisy's pen. Under the moonlight, its jet-black coat shimmered with a mysterious allure. But what truly surprised Noah was the horse's demeanor. Instead of being aggressive or curious, it stood by the pen, its head lowered as though seeking solace. Daisy, in turn, showed no fear. She stood calmly, gazing at the horse with gentle eyes. Noah decided to share this strange story with his closest friend, Thomas, a village elder known for his trove of fascinating tales about the area's mysteries. That afternoon, Noah visited Thomas's small house, nestled beside a brook with an old wooden fence and a trellis of bougainvillea climbing around the porch. Thomas sat in his usual rocking chair, puffing on a pipe. "Thomas, I've seen something strange," Noah began, recounting everything captured by the camera. Thomas nodded thoughtfully, his eyes glinting with curiosity. Wild horses don't usually approach humans or livestock, but they can have deeply felt emotions. I've heard stories of horses sensing loneliness or sadness in other creatures. Perhaps this one is searching for something it's lost. Noah pondered this and asked, "But why would it come to Daisy's pen? And why isn't Daisy afraid of it?" Thomas chuckled softly. "Maybe there's an unspoken understanding between them, a shared empathy we can't perceive." Over the following nights, the strange occurrence continued. Each time the pale moonlight filtered through the clouds, the wild horse would appear, quietly approaching the pen and repeating its mysterious ritual. Noah, increasingly intrigued, found himself drawn to the scene. He couldn't understand why the horse chose the cow's pen as its nightly destination. A quiet yet compassionate man, Noah spent many sleepless nights watching the footage. Each time the horse's silhouette appeared on the screen, he would wonder aloud, "Who are you and why are you here?" The farm seemed to echo the mystery in its atmosphere. The night winds swept across the vast fields, carrying the faint, sweet scent of dried hay. The steady hum of crickets formed an ambient soundtrack to the enigmatic occurrences. One night, the weather turned ominous. Dark clouds gathered, and a strong wind howled through the fields. The first flashes of lightning illuminated the landscape in brief, stark relief. Soon, heavy rain began to fall, its relentless drumming echoing across the farm. Amid the chaos, Noah worked tirelessly to safeguard his livestock and check the pens. The next morning, when the sky had cleared, a heartbreaking scene unfolded before him. A large tree near the cattle shed had been uprooted by the storm, collapsing part of the roof. He ran to the shed, his heart pounding with worry, only to discover that Daisy, his beloved cow, hadn't survived. Noah's heart felt like it was being crushed. Daisy wasn't just a cow, she was a companion, calm and dependable. Carefully, he buried Daisy beneath the old tree in the corner of the farm, where its shade had once been her refuge on scorching days. It was a serene morning, yet heavy with sorrow. That night, Noah decided to check the camera to see if the wild horse had returned. Indeed, as if driven by some invisible force, the horse reappeared. This time, the cattle shed was empty. It stopped in front of the broken door, its gaze filled with what seemed to be confusion. After quietly observing for a while, it slowly walked toward Daisy's grave. Noah, sitting in front of the screen, couldn't look away. He saw the horse standing still under the moonlight, its ears twitching as the night wind blew. Throughout the night it didn't leave, only pawing at the ground and occasionally letting out soft, mournful whinnies. The horse's strange behavior compelled Noah to dig deeper. He remembered Liam, Daisy's former owner, and decided to visit him in his small wooden house across the field. Liam, an old but sharp man, greeted him with a kind smile. After Noah shared the story, Liam fell silent for a moment, as if lost in thought. "You know," he began, his voice low, "years ago, a stray foal wandered into my farm. It was frail and emaciated, seemingly unable to survive the day." Noah listened intently. Liam continued. "Daisy, who was just a calf then, cared for that foal like it was her own. She even shared her meager supply of milk to keep it alive. It was extraordinary to see a cow love and protect another species like that." Noah was stunned by the story. Liam's account seemed to explain everything. The wild horse was the same foal from years ago, and every time it returned to the cattle shed, it wasn't just seeking comfort, but also paying tribute to the mother who had saved its life. Noah returned home with a newfound understanding. He watched the wild horse standing by Daisy's grave and felt a profound connection between the two creatures. Not long after, Noah decided to let the horse stay on the farm. He built a new stable near Daisy's grave, a place where the horse could live comfortably. Every evening, Noah would sit watching the screen, seeing the horse peacefully grazing beside Daisy's grave. Its mournful whinnies gradually turned into softer, calmer sounds, as if it had found solace. The story of the wild horse and Daisy quickly spread through the village. Everyone was moved by the bond that transcended species. Noah often recounted the tale to anyone who would listen, as a testament to how gratitude and love can connect all beings, no matter how different. In the days that followed, the horse continued to visit Daisy's grave. Touched by its loyalty, Noah decided to erect a small wooden marker engraved with Daisy's name on the grave. "They both deserve to be remembered," he said to himself. The horse seemed to understand, standing silently before the marker each time, its gaze filled with both sorrow and respect. The village of Silverpine nestled peacefully at the edge of a dense forest, where ancient trees cast their shadows, obscuring the sunlight. By day, the village buzzed with life, children's laughter, the rhythmic clatter of carpenters, and birds chirping merrily on moss-covered rooftops. But when night fell, the tranquility gave way to an eerie stillness. The Silverpine forest, with its untamed beauty, harbored many wild beasts, leaving villagers with an undercurrent of unease. Noah, a farmer living alone in a small wooden house near the village's edge, knew the dangers of the forest better than anyone. After losing an entire flock of sheep last winter, he had invested in surveillance cameras around his livestock pens. To Noah, his animals were more than just a livelihood. They were companions that helped him cope with loneliness. He especially cherished Daisy, his cow. After Daisy's passing, he devoted all his care to her calf, a little cow he named Belle. One night, pale moonlight bathed the village, blending with the sound of wind whistling through the cracks of old wooden doors. Noah lay on his small bed by the fireplace, listening to the familiar rustling of the forest, a sound that sometimes made him vigilant. Suddenly the dog's barking erupted from the direction of the pens, loud and frantic, shattering the night's stillness. "Noah, what's going on?" called old Mr. Martin, a neighbor who lived a few dozen meters away from outside the gate. "I don't know yet, I'm about to check," Noah replied, reaching for his thick coat and flashlight. "Be careful, Noah. I lost a goat to wolves last time," Martin said worriedly before heading back home. Noah stepped outside, the icy chill of the winter night air making him shiver slightly. The wind blowing from the forest carried the earthy scent of decaying leaves. The faint beam of his flashlight illuminated the trail leading to the barn, each of his footsteps crunching softly against the dry grass. Upon arrival, Noah noticed Belle pacing nervously around the barn, her wide eyes filled with unusual agitation. He shone his flashlight around but saw no sign of anything suspicious. Still, an uneasy feeling lingered in his mind. "I'll check the cameras tomorrow morning," he muttered, stroking Belle gently to reassure her before heading back to the house. At dawn, the golden light of sunrise filtered through the window as Noah sat at his computer, holding a steaming cup of coffee. He opened the surveillance footage and fast-forwarded through the recordings. Everything seemed ordinary until a strange figure flitted across the screen. Slowing the playback, he stared in astonishment at the image of a wild horse. It was a sleek, jet-black horse with a glossy coat and a strong build, but its eyes carried a profound sadness. The horse stood in front of Belle's barn, as if guarding something. Noah furrowed his brows when another horse appeared on the screen. This one was larger, with an ash-gray coat, piercing eyes, and an aggressive demeanor. In the footage, the black horse positioned itself protectively in front of the barn, lowering its head and stamping its hooves as if ready to defend itself. The gray horse charged forward and a fierce battle ensued. Powerful kicks, the whoosh of hooves slicing through the air. It was a scene both intense and terrifying. In the end, the gray horse retreated, disappearing into the darkness. Noah sat frozen before the screen, unable to fathom the black horse's actions. Why had it protected Belle's barn? What could have compelled it to risk facing a stronger foe? Unable to suppress his curiosity, Noah decided to share the incident with a few trusted neighbors. "You should inform the village elder," suggested Mrs. Clara, the village baker, after hearing the story. "Strange things in Silverpine Forest aren't uncommon." "Could it be someone's stray horse?" wondered Harrington, the blacksmith. "But standing up for cattle? That's unusual." The village elder, Mr. Harrington, an old man with a snowy white beard, listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "Silverpine Forest has always held mysteries beyond explanation. This horse might be part of secrets we're yet to uncover," he said, his gaze distant. "But if it's not causing harm and even protecting livestock, perhaps we should let nature take its course. It might not be a threat." That evening, Noah checked the barn one more time before bed. He stood silently outside, gazing into the pitch-black forest. Somewhere in the darkness, he felt a pair of unseen eyes watching him. "Black horse, if you're still out there, I hope you'll help me protect Belle," he murmured, his words strange yet tinged with hope. Following the wild horse's appearance and the loss of a cow, Noah became more cautious than ever. He reinforced the barn's fences and installed floodlights. "Are you sure the lights will work?" Mr. Harrington asked as he watched Noah adjust the fixtures. "At the very least, we'll see the danger when it comes," Noah replied with determination. "I can't let this happen again." A week passed, and the village returned to its quiet rhythm. The nights grew calm, but one late night, that peace was shattered. The barking of dogs erupted across the village, from Noah's farm to distant homes. Startled awake, Noah grabbed his flashlight and rushed to the barn, his heart pounding with worry for his livestock. When he stepped outside, the sight before him made his hair stand on end. A herd of wild horses faced the barn, their silhouettes like statues against the dim light. Their eyes glowed menacingly, like deceived stars in the dark sky. The black horse was there again, its presence commanding, but this time, it wasn't alone. Its eyes gleamed with an ominous determination as it led the wild herd like a true leader. Inside the barn, Belle cowered in fear. The black horse positioned itself protectively in front of the barn, letting out fierce neighs like a declaration of war. "Noah, what's happening?" Harrington's voice called as he approached. "A herd of wild horses," Noah shouted, his voice trembling. "They're trying to breach the barn." Harrington surveyed the scene, his expression grave. "What do we do? I'll call for help." "There's no time," Noah replied, his voice firm. "We have to stop them now." Noah grabbed a makeshift torch, raising it high in an attempt to scare the horses away. The flames flickered in the darkness, but the herd stood their ground. The black horse, stubborn and resolute, refused to retreat. Amid the chaos, Belle broke through the fence, fleeing into the open. "Stop!" Noah yelled, running after her. But the wild herd quickly surrounded her. Brutal kicks and bites left Belle defenseless. The black horse fought valiantly against the wild herd, but they were too many and too ferocious. The sounds of neighing and stomping hooves filled the night, creating a haunting symphony. When the chaos ended, the herd disappeared into the shadows, leaving devastation behind. The black horse, battered and wounded, stood over Belle's lifeless body, letting out a mournful neigh as if bidding farewell to a fallen friend. Noah knelt beside Belle, tears streaming down his face. Harrington and other villagers arrived, their hearts heavy with the harsh lesson from nature's wilderness. When the sun rose, its gentle light filtered through the dense foliage of the forest, casting a warm golden hue over the ground. The silence was almost uncanny, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves brushing against one another as a gentle breeze passed through. The herd of wild horses, usually seen galloping across the meadows during the day, had disappeared. The scene was tranquil, but beside the body of a fallen cow, a lone horse stood motionless, its strong frame carrying the weight of palpable sorrow. Its deep, mournful eyes gazed at the ground, as if paying tribute to a lost companion. Noah, a rugged-looking man, slowly approached. His hair swayed lightly in the breeze, and his eyes brimmed with sympathy as they rested on the horse. He stopped beside it, placing his calloused hand gently on its back. "You did everything you could," Noah murmured, his voice hoarse. "No one can blame you." The horse lowered its head as if it understood every word. The strange bond between man and beast seemed to transcend the barriers of language. Noah decided to bury the cow in a corner of the forest, where the sunlight was abundant and tall trees provided cool shade. Hearing the news, villagers came to help. Maria, the elderly woman who had raised Noah, placed a hand on his shoulder as he dug into the earth. "This cow wasn't just an animal, it was part of our family," she said, her voice trembling. Noah nodded silently. When the final mound of earth was placed over the grave, he stood in stillness, tears streaming down his face without a sound. Suddenly, a long, mournful neigh broke the silence. It came from the horse, resonating through the forest like a sorrowful anthem, a heartfelt farewell. The villagers stood quietly listening, even the usually mischievous children pausing with wide-eyed wonder at the poignant scene. "I've never seen anything like it," a man whispered to his wife. "That horse, it has the heart of a human." In the days that followed, an air of grief seemed to envelop the entire village. It wasn't just Noah who felt the loss. Others, too, mourned deeply. They reminisced about the days when the cow and the horse roamed the forest together, two creatures of different kinds but bound by an unbreakable bond. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in hues of red, Noah noticed a familiar silhouette. It was a wild horse, but not the loyal protector he knew. This horse had wandered into the cowshed, where the deceased animal once lived. At first, Noah thought it had strayed there by chance, but night after night, the horse returned, lying silently on the hay. Word of the horse's peculiar behavior spread quickly through the village. Old Henry, who had lived there for decades, shook his head in amazement. "This isn't normal," he said to Noah one early morning. "Maybe the cow left an imprint on its heart." Villagers began gathering near the cowshed each evening, seeking answers in the horse's strange actions. Through their shared stories, memories of the cow and its bond with the guardian horse were recounted with reverence. "I remember when it defended the chickens from a pack of wolves," an elderly woman said. "That cow truly had a kind heart. And I saw it sharing water with thirsty deer during a drought," a young man added. Noah listened to it all, his heart swelling with pride and regret. As night fell, he stood beside the shed, watching the wild horse lying in silence. He stepped inside cautiously, placing a hand on its back. "Thank you for coming," he whispered. "I don't know why you're here, but I know one thing. You've brought hope to us." The horse shifted slightly, its deep eyes meeting his as if trying to convey something. Over time, the wild horse's presence became a familiar sight. It was no longer an oddity but a cherished part of the village, lovingly cared for by its people. One still night, under the silver glow of the moon, Noah walked into the old cowshed, carrying a bowl of water and some feed, placing them gently in a corner. His heart ached as he thought of the cow that had passed, but there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. His actions weren't to tame the wild horse, but to honor the unique bond it had shared with the cow. The night breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the earthy scent of the forest. As Noah returned to his home, he watched the horse from his window. It approached the shed cautiously, its movements deliberate, like a warrior surveying new territory. Its eyes reflected a mix of wariness and curiosity, but after a moment, it lowered its head, nibbling at the feed Noah had left. The next morning, Noah shared the story with Martha, his longtime neighbor. Martha, an elderly woman with a kind face, smiled gently and said, "Noah, that horse must have a very special heart. Wild horses don't usually accept humans so easily, but you've touched it with your kindness." Noah nodded, feeling the empathy in her words. As time went by, the horse grew more accustomed to the farm. Each morning, villagers passing by would see it standing quietly near the cattle barn, sometimes grazing, other times simply standing there as if guarding the area. The children, once terrified at the mention of the wild horse, now eagerly ran to see it. One day, little Sarah asked Noah, "Uncle Noah, will the horse stay here forever?" Noah gently patted Sarah's head and smiled. "I don't know, Sarah, but I think it has its own reasons for being here. When it decides to leave, it will." Gradually, the horse was no longer seen as a threat by the villagers, but rather as a symbol of loyalty. One day, Jacob, a farmer from the village, visited Noah. He brought a basket of apples and said, "Noah, I brought these apples for the horse. After all, it's become part of this farm." Noah smiled, touched by Jacob's kindness. He placed the basket near the barn, and the horse, as if understanding the gesture, slowly approached to accept the gift. One autumn morning, when the fields were still shrouded in mist, Noah noticed the horse was no longer there. He searched around the farm but couldn't find its familiar figure. A sense of loss crept into his heart. The villagers also noticed the horse's absence and murmured among themselves, Where could it have gone? Maybe it felt its mission here was complete. Noah remained silent, gazing toward the forest, thinking the horse might have returned there. But that evening, when he entered the barn for one last check, he froze. Fresh hoofprints were etched into the damp soil near the spot where the cow was buried. The prints seemed to be a silent farewell, unspoken yet powerful enough to stir the heart. The story of the horse and the cow spread throughout the village and beyond. One day, Noah decided to share the tale with the villagers. Standing in the small town hall, his warm voice echoed, "This story isn't just about a horse and a cow. It's a lesson about love, loyalty, and gratitude. A wild horse living only by instinct taught us that kindness can break down all barriers. It reminds us that in any circumstance, sincere affection can spread and connect us to the world around us." The villagers fell silent. Some wiped away tears. Martha softly remarked, "Noah, your story hasn't just touched our hearts. It will live on as a cherished memory of this village." From that day forward, Silverpine was no longer known only for the brave guardian horse, but also for a profound lesson in respecting and living harmoniously with nature. Noah led the villagers in establishing a safer defense system, determined to protect their lives and maintain their bond with the natural world. The tale of the brave and loyal guardian horse touched countless hearts. Amidst loss and adversity, its friendship and sacrifice shone like a beacon in the dark. Have you ever witnessed such extraordinary loyalty? Whether it's a small act or a grand story, these values always bring warmth and hope. Share your thoughts on this story, and if it touched your heart, join hands to spread it further to inspire more people. In this way, the lessons of nature, loyalty, and empathy can be lovingly passed on,